Well, hello everyone. I just wanted to take a few minutes to make a short video about some of the things that's going on in Sandy City, Utah, um, with the poor and irresponsible social engineering by the Sandy City Planning Commission. And it has to do with this area right here, which I've got um, highlighted. We've got a pin here and a pin here to show the distance. That this is the area that I'll be talking about. And you can see that it's a mainly residential area filled with neighborhoods and families. This area that I have highlighted here is 1.6 kilometer distance, which equals out to 0.9941939 miles. So it's less than a mile, okay? And I'm going to be talking about several things along this stretch of road here. This is 700 East in Sandy. You can see that right there. And in between 8600 South and approximately 7800 South. So anyway, from this point to this point is the main area that I'll be talking about. So let me switch over to this other map and just kind of show you briefly what's in the area, a little bit closer view. We have a junior high school right here, right off 7th East. This is 7th East right here. Up here a little bit, we have just around the corner, this bend. The transition from 700 East to 900 East. We have a high school. Let's go back down here. There's the junior high again. And over here you can see an elementary school, okay? Right in this neighborhood, right off of 700 East again, which is right here. What I wanted to talk about is how Sandy City Planning Commission has really done a disservice to this area. In the late 90s, this road, 700 East right here, was a two-lane road. It was mostly, as you can see, neighborhoods and agricultural land. A lot of the people who lived in this area who had agricultural land sold it out to these sort of the neighborhood development, basically. So anyway, it's now it's actually a 5-lane road because you've got 2 lanes in each direction plus a center turn lane, which they've started to fill with mediums so that you can't make a left turn from anywhere except for in the designated areas. But basically what I'm going to be talking about today is the drug rehab and treatment centers that Sandy City Planning and Zoning Commission has allowed to move into this area. And I'll give you kind of a rundown of where they are. The first one, as you're going northbound on 700 East, is right here. It used to be a home. It was a residential home until this road was developed, and then we had a drug rehab that moved right in. So it's a business now. It's actually facing the residential road that goes here. But anyway, so we have AD psychotherapy here. And then we have, as you come down 700 East, right here where you see all these trees, there's actually a building back here. It's Turning Point. It's a drug rehab place. So you can see from point here to here, that's not very long. You can walk all of these distances, no problem, okay? But here's another Turning Point treatment center here. As you come down 7th East again, you have, I think it's this property right here, is which was a residential home at one point. It's now a divorce mediation business. And then you come down here to this area, this right here. This was all agricultural land right here, and the property next to it. But when they widened the street, they got rid of the old home that was here on this property, and they built this. It still looks like a home, but it was a Century 21, but now it's another drug rehab treatment center. It's called Changes. So you can see, you can walk to all of these places. So that's 3 drug rehabs and 1 divorce mediation. Then you come down here, right here, just kitty corner from the school. There's another drug rehab here, and I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's got 2 names now. It's got it's got a logo on the front for one treatment center, and then it's got on the signage over here, it has another challenge or something like that. I'll have to read my article and you'll see all the names of these things. I've written an article about these treatment centers in the area. And this building used to be a day spa, and it was also agricultural land, but when the road development came in, they tore the stuff on the property down, built this building, and then there's a building in the back that was part of the day spa too. But I'm just going to make the assumption that this is where they have their inpatient patient stay is back here. This is kind of where their general public place. Okay, so we're right across the street, remember, from this junior high school right here. In this shows a vacant lot now, but within the last 6 months, this land has been developed. There's another treatment center. It's called Wasatch Recovery. That's right here. And that there's a bunch of residential units in the back in this area. According to their website, they do have inpatient care, so I don't know if these are rental units, depending on what the zoning code is there, or if it's inpatient facilities. I'm still not quite sure. It's fairly new, so I don't know exactly what's going on there. So, like I say, here's the far north point on that first map, the point right here. Okay, and it's within walking distance of this high school. Okay, we do have some high schoolers that do walk to school and who walk down 9th onto 7th East. So we're in walking distance of the school, and where we are right across the street from a junior high school, and which many of those children do walk to and from school. And then we have the elementary school here, which some of those children will come up this way. Their parents usually come and pick them up. Just one other point I want to make really quick. This property right here on the corner used to be a home also, but after the development, it was knocked down and they put a daycare here. The daycare runs from the front portion being on 7th to the back portion of the daycare being on this neighborhood street right here. So parking is always, when pick up and drop off, this area it's nuts. Don't even try to go down that street unless you're picking up somebody from that daycare. But because their driving skills they're just focused on getting their kids, I guess, which is good. But anyway, I think it's an accident waiting to happen. Okay, so let me just go back to this property right here, which is my first pin down right here in this area. This was the first treatment center that was put up. I'll just talk about everything on this road right now because I don't know if you know anything about Operation Diversion or Operation Rio Grande. It was a crackdown on the homeless and drugs in Salt Lake City, in Salt Lake City proper by the road home. They had a big crackdown. Well, they arrested or took in, they apprehended over 1,000 people. Okay. They basically sat them in a room if they had a drug problem and said, you can either go to treatment or go to jail. So they had to make a choice right then. And most of them, I'm sure, chose the treatment because after weeks after that happened, this place and then the changes, which is this property right here, these were the two main ones that really affected our neighborhood right here. But when they have counseling services on site, which people can come any time of day for those. But when they were handing out their methadone and their, uh, other drugs that they have for drug treatment, um, if it's court ordered, it needs to be witnessed and administered by a nurse or a healthcare professional, a doctor or something. So when the nurse or um, the doctors would show up to mete out these medications, the parking was crazy. These parking lots of all these treatment centers only have at the most, I think the most I counted on one facility, and that was probably this Turning Point facility here. I think they had 15 places where you could park. Now these others only have like 6, below 10 parking places. So these people would show up in droves to get their uh, daily dose, or probably it was done weekly. But they'd fill up the parking lot even beyond the parking stalls that were there, and then they would park down the streets into the neighborhoods. There's a field here. They would park under these trees. They would park right on 7th East. In fact, they would park right at the corner, so it wasn't the 30-foot, setback from the stop signs that are here. It would be right on the corners, going all the way around. And so when you come to pull out of these streets, you can't see because there's so many cars. It was really unsafe. But anyway, after everybody, I guess, did their treatment that they were assigned by whoever the law enforcement or judge was, when that was done, the parking problem kind of diminished several weeks uh, after this. Well, it was probably more than a month that they went through this treatment. It was probably a 6 weeks deal. But anyway, just really quickly, so we know that there's a parking problem if law enforcement decides to crack down on drug use again. Okay, this problem is not going to go away. Um, they put During this time, they actually were repairing the curbs. They replaced all the curbs on all of these neighborhood streets, whether they needed them or not. And I'm sure it was federal money because a lot of them were in perfect condition, but they replaced them anyway, going all the way down 7th East. Then after they got that done, during these drug dispensary, you know, uh, high points, they put a bike lane in on each side of the road. And so at some point when they were still having a high turnout for these drug dispensaries. Um, People would still park on 7th East. It used to be a shoulder where they would park, which was fine, but they ended up putting a stripe in a bike lane down, the sides of these streets. So it took away the shoulder and made it a bike lane. So these people would park basically in the bike lane, which it didn't matter to me because I couldn't see getting out of these streets anyway. And if I was having a problem, I think everybody else was too. I think we were probably at our wits' end before it kind of died down. But and then probably a week or two later, because they probably got complaints, people parking in the bike lane, of course. If one person, a day comes down that bike lane and somebody's parked in it, you're going to hear about it. So they decided to erect signs all down this 7th East saying that there's no parking. You cannot park there, period. And the problem is, or the reason is because it's a bike lane now. So I'm just making assumptions here, but I'm guaranteeing you that that's what it is. Okay, so parking problems. And then most of these businesses that are popping up along 7th East now are scattered among existing homes, okay, all along this road. Some of them were like there's like a dentist office or something down here, and there were some commercial businesses, but for the most part, since the widening of this road, it's the businesses are moving into existing homes and just making them businesses. So I think there's some sort of stipulation that Sandy City Planning has put on them that, because it's residential, they want to keep the residential look, but they're still homes. I mean, there's hair salons, there's spas, there's all kinds of stuff in these homes. So, I'm just basically saying that this irresponsible social engineering by Sandy City Planning is taking a toll on our neighborhoods here along 7th East. The traffic is getting really bad because down on 90th South, which is the freeway access, they've built several multifamily dwellings. We call them stack and packs. I mean, it's it's on a big scale compared to Sandy City, but they purposely don't put parking in those things because they don't want you to be driving your car. They want you to go down 90th and ride the tracks train, okay? So there's huge traffic problems now. From 8600 South to 80th South, you'll have pretty much a parking lot on 7th East going southbound. So we have them making some sort of stipulation, I think, about what kind of property can exist as a business on this road. There's no saying, though, after the first person moves in, what happens. Because once it's been zoned, and a business moves out, seems like they can redevelop it on their own, which, it's their property. They should be able to do that. But I'm just saying that maybe this wasn't the smartest place to put these drug rehabs, because apparently you can open the door on one and then it will just explode because they will not monitor what comes in after. They're like, well, we got one, let's let another one in. The thing is the residents here, that as far as I know, and I feel like I'm pretty well connected, but we didn't even know that these places were coming in. So there was more hubbub about a little restaurant that shot up in this little house here, little sushi place. They wanted to get a liquor license, and there was more hubbub about that than there was these drug rehab centers. Now, I know that schools have supposedly drug-free zones in Utah. So we've got 3 schools, okay, within walking distance of all of these rehabs, okay? Now, is I'm not sure, does who gets to decide what a drug is and whether it's dangerous or not? But we know that these facilities have, not only intravenous or um, syringe type dispensing of their drugs, but they probably also have oral. So these are places that will bring crime, okay? Whether they get broke in or people, which we have experienced, coming in our neighborhood and stealing our stuff, okay? And selling it for drugs. So it gives those people who are coming into these rehabs a, a bird's eye look of what's around, and gives them opportunity because they can come into these, whether they're being dropped off at the rehab by their friends or family or whatever, or they come back, they have a relapse, they're coming back and taking your stuff. So it's created blight in the area, um, with the traffic, uh, just the multiple drug rehab and treatment centers along this less than a mile stretch of road. It's got our property values are decreasing. So this is all the kind of stuff that can happen when you have a planning commission who is not elected in your city. These people are appointed. I know of at least one person on the planning commission. She's been there for years, and she was appointed to the position because she donated to the mayor's campaign. So we got to think about how this is operating. I'm not a fan of planning commissions anyway, because I don't think that they should be social engineering our city when they're usually, well, let me just go out on a limb saying they're never in these areas where they would put 5 treatment centers and a divorce mediation center within 1 mile. Okay, they live nowhere near here. They've obviously got extra money to deliver to their political candidates. So I'm just saying that something's not right here. They're not notifying us of this uh, whatever their plan is for this area. Obviously, they don't care about it because they don't live here, but um, they're just not making very good decisions. When, before somebody wanted to start up a business, they'd probably talk to their neighbor and say, hey, I'm going to do this or that or whatever. I've been rezoned, but we had no say in it pretty much. These people sit on a board. They have people come before them and with business opportunities, and they have dollar signs in their eyes. So I'm not sure, with these drug rehab centers, I'm sure that they have a lot of government subsidies and funding to go with them. And whether some of that is passed on to the city, I'm not quite sure. But I don't know why Sandy City has to become the drug rehab and treatment uh, capital of the state of Utah, or at least Salt Lake County. These aren't the only treatment centers. I mean, when I was searching a lot of this stuff, we have a ton of them. And some of these other businesses, like this one here, the Wasatch, uh, uh, this one has three or four or more in. They've got a few in Sandy and some in Salt Lake, and then let's see the Turning Point one that's in here. They've got multiple locations. They got 4 or 5 locations, and most of them are in Sandy. So I'm just saying that I kind of wrote this in the article that I wrote about this problem, but I think a more reasonable place to have these treatment centers is, um, you know, we have a little industrial area in in Sandy. Let's see if we could go down here. We're going towards the freeway, but here's I-15 right here. And I just think that maybe this area would be a better place for these drug rehab and treatment centers because people are coming from all over the Salt Lake Valley to get their fix for the week that supposedly keeps them from taking illicit drugs or prescription drugs. And they could just get on I-15, get off the freeway, come over to one of these commercial buildings where they have lots of parking. They can get their dose and then they can get on the freeway and get out of here. Okay? They don't have to be in our neighborhood. So I think that this is just totally irresponsible social engineering by um, Sandy City Planning Commission in this case, but maybe any planning commission. So we don't need these things in our residential neighborhoods where kids go to school and there's an elementary, a junior high, and a high school that are all affected by this traffic, and they're supposed to have drug-free zones. Yet we got treatment centers, you know, right across the street from them. So uh, anyway, that's my rant, I guess. I hope you'll look into it. I know Draper City is having their own problem. They're trying to keep a drug rehab from coming in. It's on 7th East in Draper, Utah, and it's basically the same sort of scenario that we had here. It's still a 2-lane road that they have down there, but they're since they got the tracks train down there, all the residential homes have been practically blighted. There many of them that have been there for, you know, uh, more than 50 years are being knocked down. You know, who knows what's going up. But anyway, they're trying to keep the drug rehabs out of Draper right now. They've got several care centers and they're already having problem with burglaries, people coming to get the drugs for the seniors that are living there and the dentists in the area and stuff. So we know that this does bring crime. There's proof. We've got lots of testimony from everyday Americans, Utahns, saying that there's a problem. So anyway, hope that Draper can keep this nonsense out of their area because Sandy City Planning Commission took their steroids, their head got big, and then they just went wacko. So anyway, everybody have a nice day, and thanks for watching, and I hope you share this information and pass it along. Thank you.